The glass shattered. Not loudly, not dramatically. It slipped from the employee's hand and hit the marble floor with a soft, unforgiving crack. And in that exact moment, the millionaire stopped breathing. His eyes were locked on the photo, not blinking, not moving, as if his body had forgotten how. "Sir," the employee whispered, voice trembling. The room felt suddenly smaller, heavier, like the air itself had turned solid. The billionaire, Victor Hale, a man who had survived hostile takeovers, prison threats, and public scandals without ever flinching, looked like he was about to collapse. "Where did you find that?" Victor asked. His voice wasn't angry. It was worse. It was hollow. Minutes earlier, everything had been normal. Victor Hale's penthouse office overlooked the city, glass walls glowing gold in the late afternoon sun. Power lived here. Decisions that changed thousands of lives were made between these walls. The employee, Evan, barely 26, new to the company, had been tasked with something simple: organize archive files, scan old documents, clear space. He hadn't been snooping. He hadn't been curious. The photo had fallen out of an old leather folder by accident. It was old, edges curled, colors faded. A young woman stood in the center, smiling nervously at the camera. Beside her, a small child, no older than 4. Dark eyes, familiar eyes. Evan had frowned when he saw it, because the child looked exactly like the man standing across the room. Same jawline, same scar above the eyebrow, same eyes. "Sir," Evan said gently, "I think this might have been mixed in with—" Victor lunged. The movement was so sudden Evan stumbled back. Victor grabbed the photo with shaking hands. And then he froze. The city outside blurred. Victor wasn't in the penthouse anymore. He was somewhere else. Somewhere colder. Somewhere he had buried so deep inside himself that even his nightmares had stopped visiting it. His chest tightened. His legs gave out. He dropped into the leather chair behind him, clutching the photo like it might disappear if he loosened his grip. "No," he whispered. "No, no, no." Evan's heart pounded. "Sir, do you want to call someone?" he asked. "A doctor?" Victor didn't answer. His eyes traced the child's face again, and again, and again, as if counting the years, as if measuring the damage. "Who else has seen this?" Victor finally asked. "No one," Evan said quickly. "I swear, it just fell out." Victor looked up. For the first time, Evan saw fear in the eyes of a man the world believed was untouchable. "You need to forget this," Victor said. Evan swallowed. "Forget what?" Victor stood slowly. The room seemed to tilt with him. "That photo," he said. "That folder. This moment." Silence. Then Victor added something that made Evan's blood run cold. "Because if you understand what you're holding," he said quietly, "it means everything I built is already gone." Evan left the office in a daze, but the image stayed burned into his mind. That child, that face, that impossible resemblance, and the way Victor Hale, billionaire, titan, legend, had looked like a man watching his past claw its way out of the grave. That night, Victor stood alone in the dark penthouse, city lights blinking below like distant warnings. He placed the photo on the table, next to another photograph, hidden, locked away, one the world had never seen. The two images side by side told a story no headline ever could, a story of abandonment, of secrets paid for with silence, of a choice made decades ago that was finally coming back to collect its debt. Victor whispered one sentence into the empty room. She wasn't supposed to be found. And somewhere in the city, unaware of the storm he was about to unleash, the employee began searching for answers, because what he had seen in that photo wasn't just a resemblance. It was a truth. And when that truth finally surfaced, it would destroy lives far beyond that glass-walled office. But what the employee would discover next would leave everyone frozen in shock. Evan didn't sleep that night. Every time he closed his eyes, the photo came back. That child's face. Too familiar, too precise, too impossible to ignore. By morning, the shock had curdled into something far more dangerous. Curiosity. Victor Hale arrived at the office earlier than usual. His assistants noticed it immediately. The lights in his penthouse were already on before sunrise. The blinds stayed closed. Meetings were canceled without explanation. Inside, Victor sat alone at his desk, staring at the same photograph. He had memorized every detail years ago. The loose strand of hair falling across the woman's cheek, the way the child clung to her leg, the small scar above the eyebrow. His scar. A scar no one else knew the origin of. He pressed his thumb against it now, as if checking it was still real. Downstairs, Evan hovered near the coffee machine, pretending to scroll through his phone. He watched people pass. Executives, security, lawyers, all of them moving through the building like nothing had changed, like a secret hadn't cracked open above their heads. Maybe it's nothing, he told himself, but the words fell hollow. By noon, Evan made a mistake. He typed a name into the internal database. Not Victor's, the woman's. He hadn't meant to, not consciously, but the name had stuck in his head from the faded writing on the back of the photo. Elena Moore. The screen blinked, then loaded, and Evan's stomach dropped. One file. Restricted access. Flagged. Last updated. 15 years ago. Status. Closed. No further action required. That was when Evan knew this wasn't a coincidence. Meanwhile, upstairs, Victor received a call he hadn't expected. "Sir," his head of security said quietly, "we detected a search attempt in the archive system." Victor's fingers tightened around his phone. "By who?" "An entry-level employee," the man replied. "Evan Parker." Silence stretched. Victor closed his eyes. The past wasn't knocking anymore. It was inside the house. "Bring him to me," Victor said. "No witnesses." Evan was halfway back to his desk when two men approached him. Not HR, not security with badges, just suits. "Mr. Parker," one said calmly. "Mr. Hale would like a word." Evan felt the floor tilt beneath him. I didn't do anything wrong," he stammered. "Of course not," the man replied. "Please." The elevator ride was silent, longer than it should have been. Evan watched the numbers climb, his reflection staring back at him in the mirrored walls. He looked pale, younger than yesterday. The penthouse doors slid open. Victor was standing this time, waiting. The photo lay face down on the desk between them. Victor didn't invite Evan to sit. "Did you search her name?" Victor asked, straight to the point. Evan swallowed hard. "Yes," he admitted. "I'm sorry. I couldn't understand." Victor raised a hand. Evan stopped. "What you saw," Victor said slowly, "was not meant to be understood." "Then why does a child look like you?" Evan asked. The words escaped before fear could stop them. The room went still. Victor's jaw tightened. That was the moment something changed. Victor walked to the window and pulled the blinds open. The city flooded in. Noise, movement, life. "All empires," Victor said quietly, "are built on a lie. One lie strong enough to support everything else." He turned back. "That child is a lie I built mine on." Evan's breath caught. "You abandoned him," he whispered. Victor's eyes hardened. "I protected him." Victor reached into a drawer and pulled out another folder. Thicker. He placed it on the desk, but didn't open it. "There are things," he said, "that cost more than money to erase." Evan felt his heart pounding in his throat. "Is he alive?" Evan asked. Victor didn't answer. That was answer enough. That evening, Victor made another call. This one went to a number he hadn't dialed in years. "We have a problem," he said. A pause. "No," Victor added quietly. "The boy isn't the problem." Another pause. "The employee is—" Across the city, Evan sat in his apartment, staring at his laptop. He had copied the file. Just one page. Before access was revoked. Before alarms triggered. It wasn't much, but it was enough. A birth certificate. Redacted names. A hospital stamp that no longer existed. And one handwritten note in the margin. Child relocated. Subject uncooperative. Evan's hands trembled. Relocated. Not adopted. not protected, relocated. The realization hit him like ice water. This wasn't a secret buried by time. It was a secret still being guarded. And the moment Evan had touched it, he had become part of it. Outside his window, a car idled too long. Evan noticed. The headlights stayed on. The engine hummed. Waiting. Somewhere high above the city, Victor Hale stood alone again, staring at the photo. He whispered a name he hadn't said out loud in 15 years. And for the first time since he'd buried the truth, he felt afraid. Because secrets don't stay hidden forever. They wait, and when they come back, they don't come quietly. Evan didn't go to work the next day. For the first time since he joined Hale Industries, he let his phone ring without answering. Missed calls stacked up, voicemails piled in silence. He knew who they were from, and he knew what that meant, because powerful men didn't call twice unless they needed something back. Evan's apartment felt smaller than it ever had. The walls closed in. Every sound felt louder than it should be. A creak from the hallway. Footsteps outside. The elevator dinging on another floor. He kept the lights off, sat on the edge of his bed, and stared at the single printed page he had risked everything to copy. The birth certificate. The redactions looked deliberate, angry, like someone had scratched out names instead of erasing them. But one thing hadn't been hidden well enough. Father, VH. Not a full name, just initials. But Evan didn't need more. He thought about Victor Hale, the man who donated millions to children's hospitals, the man who spoke about second chances at charity galas, the man whose face appeared on magazine covers beside words like visionary and self-made. And then he thought about the woman in the photo, Elena, standing barefoot in a dim room, holding a child who clung to her like the world was already unsafe. Evan's chest tightened. That wasn't a stage photo. It wasn't a memory meant to be framed. It was evidence. Across the city, Victor sat in a room no one else knew existed. Not the penthouse. Not the office. A private space buried beneath one of his older properties. Concrete walls. No windows. No cameras. Just him. And a memory he couldn't outrun. Elena had cried that night. Not loudly. That was what haunted him most. She didn't scream. She didn't beg. She just held the child closer. "You promised," she whispered. "You said he'd be safe." Victor remembered the weight of the envelope in his coat, the papers inside, the signatures. Safety. Such a flexible word. Back in the present, Victor poured himself a drink he didn't need. His hands shook anyway. Evan Parker was a problem, but not because of what he knew, because of what he felt. Victor recognized it immediately. The kind of curiosity that wasn't satisfied by money. The kind that came from empathy. That was dangerous. Evan wasn't alone in his fear. He finally broke the silence and called the only person he trusted. His older sister, Mara. She answered on the second ring. "Evan? What's wrong?" Her voice cracked something inside him. "I think I found something I wasn't supposed to," he said quietly. Silence. "Then are you safe?" "I don't know." That was the truth. Mara came over within an hour. She took one look at Evan's face and didn't ask questions. Just hugged him, held him, like she used to when their parents used to fight behind closed doors, when secrets lived in rooms children weren't allowed to enter. Evan showed her the document, watched her expression change. Confusion, shock, fear. "This is Victor Hale," she whispered. "Yes. And this child, his..." Mara sat down slowly. "This isn't just a secret," she said. "This is a crime." Evan shook his head. "I think it's worse. Because crimes ended." This didn't feel like something that had ever stopped. That night, Evan dreamed of a boy standing in a long hallway, faceless, calling out, not screaming, just asking, "Why?" Victor dreamed too. He dreamed of a door opening, of footsteps approaching, of a voice that sounded older than it should, stronger, angrier. By morning, both men woke with the same realization. The truth wasn't buried. It was alive, and it was moving, slowly, patiently, toward the surface. Somewhere, a man who had once been a child stared at his own reflection. and for the first time, wondered if the world was finally ready to know who he really was. 3 nights later, the box appeared. No knock, no warning, no return address. It was just there, sitting outside Evan's apartment door like it had always belonged there. Brown cardboard. No tape, no label, only one thing written on the top, in black marker, for the one who looked too closely. Evan stood frozen in his hallway for a full minute, heart pounding, breathing shallow. Someone knew, not suspected, knew. He didn't touch it at first. He checked the stairs, the elevator, the security camera at the end of the hall. Nothing. No footsteps. No shadows. Just a box. Waiting. Inside, the apartment felt colder than usual. Evan placed the box on the kitchen table, sat across from it, as if it were a person, as if it might speak first. His phone buzzed. A single text. Unknown number. Whatever you think this is, it's worse. He opened the box. Slowly, carefully, like opening something fragile or dangerous. Inside were 3 items. A small leather notebook, a sealed envelope stamped with an outdated corporate logo, and a photograph, older than the one he'd seen before. This one wasn't dim. It was bright. Sunlight spilling across a backyard. A woman laughing. A child running toward the camera. And behind them, half in shadow, Victor Hale, younger, unpolished, smiling in a way Evan had never seen. The notebook came first. The leather was cracked, worn from being handled too often. Not a diary. A log. Dates. Times. Locations. And next to each entry, short, cold notes. Transfer complete. Subject relocated. Medical compliance achieved. Evan swallowed. Subject? Not child. Not son. Subject. The earliest entry was nearly 25 years old. Long before Victor Hale became a public figure. Before the money. Before the empire. Evan flipped deeper. The handwriting changed over time. At first, neat. Then rushed. Then almost frantic. One entry stopped him cold. Elena refused again. Increased risk of exposure. Below it, written harder, darker. Alternative solution approved. Evan's hand shook. He hadn't noticed Mara standing behind him until she spoke. Evan, her voice barely existed. She was staring at the notebook, at the words, at the truth taking shape. This isn't about hiding a child, she whispered. No, Evan said. His throat felt dry. It's about controlling one. The envelope came next. Corporate logo. Hale Biomedical Division. A division that didn't officially exist. Inside were copies of contracts, non-disclosure agreements, medical consent forms, most of them signed by the same name, Elena R., but the signatures were inconsistent. Some careful, some shaky, some barely legible. Like her hand hadn't wanted to write them. And then at the bottom, one page unsigned, titled, Long-Term Outcome Projection. Mara read it out loud. Her voice broke halfway through. Cognitive isolation, behavioral monitoring, emotional severance. She stopped. Oh my God, she whispered. This wasn't a secret, child. It was an experiment. The final item was tucked beneath the envelope. A flash drive. No label. No markings. Just black plastic. Heavy. Final. They watched the first video in silence. Grainy footage. A small room. White walls. A child sitting alone on the floor. Not crying. Not playing. Just waiting. A voice off camera spoke calmly. You understand why this is necessary. The child didn't answer. Just looked up. Eyes too old. Too aware. Mara covered her mouth. Evan felt sick. Because the voice, it wasn't Victor's. It was younger. Less confident. But unmistakable. Another video loaded. The child was older. Teenage now. Anger in his posture. Defiance in his silence. You were never supposed to remember her, the voice said. A pause. I did, the boy replied. Evan shut the laptop. Hard. Too hard. The screen flickered. Who is he now? Mara asked. Evan didn't answer. because he already knew the worst part. If Victor Hale had gone to this length, if entire divisions had been erased, if lives had been reshaped, then the boy hadn't disappeared. He'd been released. And people who were released after being controlled rarely stayed quiet forever. That night, Evan received another message. Same unknown number. Just 6 words. You're not the only one watching. Somewhere else in the city, a man opened a safe hidden behind a false wall. Inside was an identical notebook, and a photograph that had been folded and unfolded so many times it was nearly falling apart. Victor Hale stared at it, then whispered a name he hadn't spoken in decades. Not Elena, not the child. Another name, one Evan had never seen before. And in that moment, it became clear the story wasn't about a millionaire and a secret. It was about what happens when power tries to erase blood and fails. The first mistake Victor Hale made was assuming the past stayed buried. The second mistake was believing fear would keep it silent forever. Evan didn't sleep that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the boy in the video, not crying, not screaming, just waiting for something to end or begin. By morning, the city felt different, sharper, louder, as if it knew something Evan didn't want to admit yet. Mara sat at the kitchen table, the leather notebook between her palms like it might burn her skin. "We can't pretend this doesn't exist," she said quietly. Evan nodded. "I know." But knowing didn't make it safer. They traced the notebook's final entries. The date stopped abruptly. No conclusion. No closure. Just one final line written in a different ink, different hand. Subject transferred, independent oversight. Independent. A lie dressed up as freedom. Evan followed the trail the only way he knew how. He leaked fragments. Not the full truth. Just enough to make powerful people uncomfortable. Anonymously. Quietly. A whisper in the right ears. And whispers, when they carry the right words, become earthquakes. 2 days later, Hale Industries' stock dipped. Nothing dramatic. Just enough. Victor noticed. Of course he did. That evening, Evan was summoned. Not invited. Summoned. A single message from Victor's personal assistant. "Mr. Hale, request your presence." Immediately, the penthouse felt colder than before. Less polished. As if the walls themselves were listening. Victor stood by the window, back turned. City lights reflected in the glass like fractured stars. "You're not subtle," Victor said. No greeting. No warmth. Evan didn't respond. Victor turned slowly. And for the first time, he looked old. "You saw something," Victor continued. "Something you weren't meant to." Evan met his gaze. "I saw a child." Victor's jaw tightened. "Be careful." "I saw what you did to him." Silence. Heavy. Dangerous. Victor exhaled. Long. Tired. "I gave him a future," he said. "No," Evan replied. "You designed one." Victor walked to the desk, opened a drawer, pulled out a photograph. The same one. Elena. The child. Himself. "You think I wanted this?" Victor asked. "You think power doesn't demand sacrifices?" Evan's voice didn't rise. "Power doesn't demand children." Victor's composure cracked. Just slightly. Just enough. "Elena was unstable," he said. "She wanted to leave. To expose everything. So you took her child. I protected him. You erased her." Victor didn't deny it. Then came the confession Evan never expected. "The project wasn't about control," Victor said. "It was about correction." Correction. As if humanity were a mistake. "He wasn't the first," Victor continued quietly. "He was just the one who remembered too much." Evan felt the room tilt. "How many?" he asked. Victor didn't answer. He didn't have to. The final twist came not from Victor, but from Evan's phone. A notification. Live news alert. Breaking. Whistleblower emerges with evidence linking Hale Biomedical to illegal human trials. Victor froze. Slowly turned. "You didn't," he whispered. Evan's voice shook. "I didn't." Because Evan hadn't released it. Someone else had. Someone with access. Someone with history. The next alert hit harder. A name appeared on the screen. The whistleblower. Anonymous no longer. A single sentence beneath the headline. Former subject speaks out. Victor staggered back. Color drained from his face. No, he said, not angrily, fearfully. He can't. Evan realized the truth all at once. The boy hadn't been silenced. He hadn't been broken. He had been waiting, learning, preparing. Security alarms screamed. Phones rang. Screens lit up across the penthouse. Victor sank into his chair, whispered the name again. The one from the safe. The one Evan had never heard. Because the real horror wasn't what Victor had done. It was what he had created, and what he had lost control of. Outside, sirens wailed. Inside, Victor Hale finally understood something terrifying. This wasn't an exposé. It was a reckoning, and it had only just begun. The sirens didn't stop. They multiplied. One became 3. 3 became dozens. Red and blue lights painted the glass walls of the penthouse like a warning the city had been holding back for decades. Victor Hale remained seated, still, silent, as if movement itself might shatter what little control he had left. Evan stood frozen, phone vibrating endlessly in his hand. Messages, calls, unknown numbers, journalists, lawyers, board members. The world had found the door Victor spent his life locking, and someone had kicked it open. "Shut it down," Victor finally whispered. Every server, every archive. Mara stepped forward. "It's too late." Victor looked up at her, really looked, and in that moment, he realized something that shook him deeper than the sirens. She wasn't afraid. "You always thought fear kept people loyal," Mara said calmly, "but it only teaches them to wait." Victor's lips trembled. "Where is he?" he asked. Evan understood who he meant. "The boy." Evan said, "He's not a boy anymore." Screens across the penthouse lit up on their own, one by one. Live feeds, court filings, leaked footage, medical logs, faces blurred but voices clear, testimonies, pain, survival. A familiar voice cut through the noise. Older now, steady, controlled. "I was told I was broken," the voice said, "that I needed fixing. But what they were fixing was obedience." Victor's breath hitched. "That's impossible," he muttered. "He was monitored." The voice continued. "They thought I forgot. They thought trauma erased memory. They were wrong." Evan felt chills crawl up his spine. Because this was a revenge. It was precision. Every file released at the exact moment it would hurt the most. Every truth timed perfectly. Then came the knock. Not the polite kind. The kind that doesn't ask permission. "Victor Hale." A voice boomed from behind the door. "Federal agents." "Open immediately." Silence swallowed the room. Victor stood slowly, straightened his jacket. For a moment, he looked like the man the world once admired. Then his shoulders sagged, just a little. As the door opened, cameras flashed. Agents flooded in. Handcuffs clicked. Cold. Final. Victor didn't resist. He only turned once, looked at Evan. "You think this ends me?" Victor said quietly. Evan shook his head. "No." Victor was led away. Down the private elevator. Into history. Or so it seemed. Hours later, as dawn crept over the city, Evan sat alone in his apartment. The city outside was waking up, unaware, or pretending to be. A final message arrived. No sender, no number, just text. Truth is only the first step. Below it, a photo, recent, a group of faces, adults, some smiling, some scarred, all familiar, former subjects. Together, watching something off camera. Evan zoomed in. At the center stood the boy. No, the man. Older, stronger, eyes calm, focused. Behind them, on a wall, written in bold black letters, Phase 2. Evan's chest tightened, because he finally understood. This wasn't about exposing the past. It was about shaping the future. And somewhere out there, the most dangerous person Victor Hale ever created was no longer hiding. He was organizing, planning, and unlike Victor, he believed he was right. They thought the nightmare was over, but in reality, it had only just begun. The city believed it was over. News anchors said the words with practiced certainty. Justice has been served. A powerful man has fallen. A dark chapter is finally closed. But Evan knew better, because monsters don't disappear when the lights come on. They adapt. 3 days after Victor Hale's arrest, Evan stopped sleeping, not because of fear, because of patterns. Every time he closed his eyes, his mind replayed the same details. The timing of the leaks, the precision of the releases, the way every truth landed exactly where it would cause maximum damage. This wasn't chaos. This was choreography. Evan sat in a dim cafe at 2:17 a.m., laptop open, untouched coffee cooling beside him. Across the screen were faces, names, former subjects, each one connected to Victor's secret programs, each one thought to be broken, disposed of, forgotten, but they weren't gone. They were aligned. A shadow moved outside the cafe window. Evan glanced up. A man stood across the street, watching, not hiding, not moving, just observing. Evan's phone buzzed. A single message. Stop digging. His throat tightened. He didn't respond. Instead, he packed up and left, walking fast, then faster, then not caring who noticed. The man followed. Evan turned down an alley. Rain slicked the pavement. Neon lights flickered like nervous eyes. Footsteps echoed behind him. Closer, closer. Evan. The voice was calm. Too calm. Evan stopped, turned. The man stood under a broken streetlight. Mid-30s. Ordinary clothes. Unremarkable face. But his eyes, they held something heavy. Something lived in. You're not here to hurt me, Evan said. The man nodded. If I was, you wouldn't have heard me. Evan swallowed. Then why follow me? The man stepped closer. Because you're asking the wrong questions. Evan clenched his fists. What is phase 2? The man smiled faintly. Protection. For who? For us. A car passed nearby. The city kept breathing. Unaware it was standing on a fault line. Victor built something. The man continued. Not just systems. Not just control. He tapped his temple. He built survivors. Evan's voice shook. Survivors don't organize like this. No, the man said softly. They organize like this when they're tired of surviving. Evan felt the weight of the truth pressing in. You're planning something. The man didn't deny it. We're preventing something. From who? Evan asked. The man met his gaze. People like Victor. But Victor is gone. The man laughed quietly. You think Victor was unique? Silence stretched. Rain fell harder. Somewhere nearby, a siren wailed. Not for them. Not yet. You should walk away. The man said. Forget what you saw. Evan shook his head. I can't. The man studied him. Long. Carefully. Then nodded. I hoped you'd say that. He handed Evan a small device. Cold. Metal. No internet. No tracking. One contact. Evan stared at it. Why me? The man's eyes softened. Because you saw the photo and you didn't look away. He stepped back into the shadows. But understand this, the man added. When truth becomes a weapon, even good people bleed. Then he was gone. Just rain. Just darkness. Just questions multiplying in Evan's mind. Evan looked down at the device. It vibrated once. A message appeared. If you continue, there is no turning back. Below it, a blinking cursor. Waiting. Evan exhaled and typed, I'm listening. Somewhere far from the city lights, a screen lit up. A group gathered. Eyes focused. Plans unfolding. The prey had realized the hunt was never over. And the hunters were no longer hiding. The device Evan held wasn't just a phone. It was a door. And the moment he typed, I'm listening, it swung open. The first message arrived seconds later. Unknown, you're being monitored. Not by the police. Not by the media. by people who learned to survive without being seen. Evan's pulse quickened. He sat alone in his apartment, lights off, city glow leaking through the blinds like a warning. Evan, who are you? The reply took longer this time. Too long. Then, unknown. We are the proof that Victor Hale was only the beginning. Evan's stomach dropped. Beginning. That word carried weight. The screen changed. A live feed appeared. Not video. Documents. Files. Medical logs. Psychological evaluations. Transfer records marked classified. Names Evan had already seen. But now there were hundreds more. Children. Adults. Different countries. Different years. Same pattern. Victor Hale hadn't acted alone. He had investors. Partners. Protection. Evan felt his hands tremble. This is impossible, he whispered to the empty room. Another message appeared. Unknown. That's what they want you to think. A knock echoed through the apartment. Sharp. Sudden. Evan froze. The device vibrated. Unknown. Do not answer. The knock came again. Louder. Mr. Carter? A voice called. Police. Evan's breath caught. The device buzzed once more. Unknown. They aren't here for your safety. His mind raced. Had the leaks triggered this? Or had this been planned long, before he ever saw the photo? Evan crept toward the door, peering through the peephole. 2 officers stood outside. Uniforms crisp. Faces neutral. Too neutral. The device vibrated again. A new message. A single sentence. Unknown. Asked them about the basement at Meridian facility. Evan hesitated, then unlocked the door. Can I help you? He asked, forcing calm. 1 officer smiled. 2 practiced. We just have a few questions. Evan nodded. About Victor Hale? The smile faded just a fraction. Yes. Evan leaned against the doorframe. Before we talk, he said, can you tell me what happened in the basement at Meridian facility in 2009? Silence. The air shifted. The second officer's hand twitched near his belt. Sir, the first officer said slowly, we don't know what you're referring to. Evan held their gaze. You should, he said. It's in your reports. The officers exchanged a glance. A silent conversation. Then, we'll be in touch, the first one said, stepping back. They left without another word. No badge numbers. No card. No explanation. The moment the door shut, Evan collapsed against it. His chest burned. This was bigger than corruption. Bigger than Victor. The device vibrated again. Unknown. Now you understand. Evan sank onto the floor. They're everywhere, he whispered. Unknown. Yes. The screen shifted again. This time, a video loaded. Grainy. Dim. A basement. Rows of doors. Numbers painted in red. A child's voice echoed faintly. Crying. Evan slammed the device face down. His stomach churned. This isn't justice, he muttered. This is war. Minutes passed. Maybe hours. When he finally looked again, a new message waited. Unknown. We're releasing Phase 2 tomorrow. Evan swallowed. What is Phase 2? He typed. The reply came instantly. Unknown. Exposure. A chill ran through him. You'll hurt innocent people, he wrote. A pause. Then, unknown. Innocence doesn't survive systems like these. Silence does. Evan stared at the words. This wasn't just about truth anymore. It was about control. About who decided when the world deserved to know. Another message appeared. Unknown. We want you with us. Evan's heart pounded. With you or against you, he typed. The reply felt heavier than all the others. Unknown. That depends on what you do next. Evan looked toward the window. The city below glittered, alive, unaware, fragile. People sleeping. Families laughing. Children dreaming. All standing on a truth buried deep beneath their feet. He realized then, revealing the truth wouldn't just destroy monsters. It would shatter lives. The device buzzed one last time. Unknown. Decide before sunrise. Evan closed his eyes. Because for the first time since this began, he wasn't afraid of what he'd uncover. He was afraid of what he might unleash. And somewhere, far beyond his sight, Preparations were already underway. Screens lighting up, files unlocking, secrets ready to burn. The sun rose quietly, too quietly, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Evan hadn't slept. He sat by the window, city lights fading, sky turning pale gray, the weight of the decision pressing on his chest like a hand that refused to move. Decide before sunrise. That's what the message had said. And now, sunrise was here. His phone buzzed again. Not a message. A notification. Live stream scheduled. 7 a.m. His heart stopped. They're actually doing it, he whispered. Across the city, across the world, servers were waking up. Files were being queued. Faces, names, locations, histories. Everything that had been buried for decades was preparing to surface. And once it did, there would be no putting it back. Evan's phone rang. A real call this time. Unknown number. He answered. Hello. A familiar voice came through. Shaky. Exhausted. Evan, it's my mother. His breath caught. I didn't want to call, she continued, voice cracking. But men came to the house last night. They asked about you. About Victor. Evan closed his eyes. Did they hurt you? No, she said. But they weren't afraid. That scared me. Before he could respond, another call interrupted. This time, a video call. He hesitated, then accepted. A woman appeared on the screen. Late 40s. Sharp eyes. Hospital badge clipped to her coat. I'm Dr. Elaine Mercer, she said quickly. You don't know me, but I know Victor Hale, and I know what's about to happen. Evan swallowed. Then you know this has to come out. Yes, she said, but not like this. She leaned closer to the camera. There are survivors, she continued. People who escaped. People who rebuilt their lives under new names. If everything goes public at once, faces, records, locations, they'll be hunted by the same people who funded Victor, by the same systems that protected him. Evan felt sick. You're saying exposure will kill them. I'm saying it already has, she replied quietly. She turned the camera. Behind her was a hospital bed. A man lay unconscious, scars on his arms, fear etched into his stillness. He testified in secret. Dr. Mercer said, they found him this morning. Evan's hands shook. This wasn't supposed to happen, he whispered. No, she said, but it always does. The clock on Evan's wall ticked closer to 7 o'clock. Minutes left. The device vibrated violently. A message from unknown. Unknown. We're live in 3 minutes. Evan typed furiously. Evan, you'll expose survivors. Children. Innocent people. The reply came instantly. Unknown. Sacrifices are necessary. Something inside Evan snapped. These aren't sacrifices, he muttered. They're victims. Another message appeared. Unknown. Victor Hale taught us one thing. Truth only works when it hurts. Evan's jaw tightened. And that's exactly what makes you dangerous, he whispered. He looked back at Dr. Mercer on the screen. What happens if I stop this? He asked. She didn't answer immediately. Then, they'll come for you. The countdown hit 1 minute. Across the world, thousands were already waiting. Curious, hungry, unaware of the human cause behind the truth they were about to consume. Evan's phone buzzed again. A final message from his sister. Sister, I'm proud of you. Whatever you choose. Tears burned his eyes. 30 seconds. Evan stood, walked to his desk, opened his laptop. His fingers hovered over the keyboard. He had access. Because unknown had trusted him. Because they thought he was like them. 10 seconds. Evan exhaled and made his choice. The live stream began. Screens across the world flickered to life. But instead of documents, instead of names and faces, there was only Evan, sitting alone, looking straight into the camera. My name is Evan Carter, he began, and what you were about to see would have destroyed more lives than it saved. Behind the scenes, alarms exploded. Servers shut down. Access keys revoked. Someone screamed. Someone else swore. Evan kept speaking. I won't give you everything. Not yet. But I will give you proof. Enough to demand justice. enough to protect the innocent. The stream cut abruptly. Black screen. Evans stared at the reflection of his own face. He'd stopped him, for now, but deep down, he knew something else. Something far more terrifying. He hadn't ended the war. He'd chosen a side. And somewhere in the darkness, someone was already preparing to finish what Victor Hale started.